Somebody would want that Zoom stock about 6 months.
You're good to go. You guys want to grab your microphones and pull them down so Trish can hear you.
They aren't on.
Good to go, Bob.
Enos, it's 4:45. I'd like to call the October Park and Rec meeting to order. Any changes to the agenda?
Nope.
Look for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So,
All in favor?
all right.
Public input? Anybody from the public here outside of the hunting?
Outside of the hunting?
Yes. That's on the agenda. We're talking about that later.
We're interested in item 5, so I assume that would be.
Yeah, that'll be on, that's on the agenda. Okay. Otherwise, nobody else? Okay, Chad, you want to get the corp thing going with Tish?
Yep. So as you guys recall, we hired East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission to assist us in updating our corp plan, which is our comprehensive outdoor recreation plan. That plan is something that's required if we ever want to go for grants. So Trish is here now kind of giving us an update of where she's at. So what I'm going to do is hopefully start this PowerPoint and then she can take control and run you through her PowerPoint. So just bear with me for a second.
And I'm going to delete. Not sure if I can get you though, Chad. Not sure if it's actually taking control or not.
Yep. Hold on one second.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll put her there, and then I'm going to go to here. And give me 1 second. All right. See if you can take control.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Yes. Welcome back. Just wanted to give you a quick update on where we're at in the park and rec planning process. So see if we can get this to advance. There we go. Might be a little bit of a delay here, but we'll get her going. So again, we're in a 4-phase process as far as how to actually complete the plan itself. Phase 1 is really where are we now? The inventory, I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on the needs assessment. Phase 2 is really where does the city want to be? Looking at your vision, looking at the goals, and then going forward into phase 3, how do we actually get there? And that's really the important part of the plan itself, is looking at your strategy and developing that action plan as far as implementation. And then really phase 4 is really your justification, your documentation, and the adoption by the city, to be eligible, like Chad had said, for any stewardship funding moving forward. All right. So looking at some of the needs assessment and the background numbers, just to kind of give you a little bit of a statistical overview. And these are DOA population projections. So 2020, 7,595. That's actually a 9.92% increase in population since the year 2000 census. So looking forward, as far as how many park acres you have out there, we utilize a standard of 10 acres per 1,000 people. So your land mass, 281.60, and these are acres that are actually maintained by the county. So when you actually pull in the standard ratio, you really have plenty of acres to accommodate your growing population into even 2040. So really your demand is only 77 acres, but you have well beyond that. So you're looking at a surplus of 2003.85. So you have plenty of land mass to accommodate your growing population. The next phase we look at is your level of service. These are by park type. So you would have a mini park at a 1/4 mile distance. Your neighborhood parks are 1/2 miles, and that's usually with your walking. That's a typical walking distance to a park. And then your community parks are a little further out at about 1 mile. And then you do have special facilities and nature areas that go from 1.5 miles to 2. So if you look at where we're at as far as just walkability, 60% of the city of New London is within that walking distance. So that's actually really good because you are really above the national average, which is 54%. So really the area as far as where your parks are located, close to those subdivisions, New London is actually a well planned out city in that respect as far as where the parks and the people are located. Going down just to kind of give you some background data, the age groups, your median age is 40.8. I don't know where they get the 0.8 years sometimes, but it's close to that 40-year mark. And the 25 to 44-year-olds were the largest in the age bracket currently. I did pull some other data that I thought you guys would find pretty interesting as far as number of facilities. So you have your number of parks, you have the acreage of the parks, but really what's inside of those parks is sometimes really what matters. So looking at what you have for facilities, plenty of baseball diamonds, you have 11, and really looking at, 1 per 10,000 people, you really don't even need that many. But you're accommodating for that trend. And really that's all these things are saying. It's a barometer and a measurement to kind of go by. Same thing with the basketball courts, plenty out there. You have the 1 disc golf course, the dog park, that definitely is there. The horseshoe pits, plenty. Playground, 7. Looking at your picnic shelters, 5. Soccer fields. You're kind of right in that, that have versus needed area with 2. The tennis courts, you have plenty, 8, and volleyball, 4. So again, it's just kind of a barometer as far as, looking at maybe how many people out there. But again, a lot of this is really based on trends, but it does give you a snapshot as far as how is the city of New London really doing out there. Okay, getting a little bit more into the level of service. And if you guys have questions, I guess just kind of stop me. These are a lot of numbers that I'm going to be kind of throwing out at you. But what we like to do is really break down, like I had said before, your population within that service area boundary. So looking at your mini type parks, your neighborhood parks, the community parks, special facilities, and natural areas. This is really where a lot of what you want to look at as far as, okay, today, what you're serving, this is what you would be serving tomorrow. So today you're actually serving fine, 9% about for the mini parks, 64% really for the neighborhood parks. But when you get down into the community facilities and the special facilities, you're actually serving well and beyond the municipal boundary. So really, that's really what it's telling you, is that you're serving beyond the population base as far as what New London is. And as you get to tomorrow, which is the 2024 mark, you're basically right under that 100% mark. So really all that's telling you is that your parks are really serving a lot of the population that's out there, well and beyond even New London for that matter. So again, land needs, plenty of parks, locational needs, your level of service is good. Facility needs, again, plenty of facilities out there, very much a variety to keep the population growing and entertained. And then still with the general needs, maybe looking at more trail connections and different things like that, but we can get more into that when we start looking at some of the recommendations. And then this is just a visual snapshot of really what the city has out there. So you're looking at your mini parks. These are where they're located. the neighborhood parks on what they're actually entailing as far as your population and your residential base. And then it goes down into the community parks, again, telling you what your percentages of each that are served. And as you can see, even down here, you're well beyond the municipal boundary when you're looking at special facilities, natural areas, and even the community parks that are actually out there. So like Hatton Park, Memorial Park, you know, you're utilizing quite a bit. You have plenty there to actually serve the population that you have. And then this is just a map that will go into the Park and Rec plan to give you a feel of all the parks together. It's kind of a rainbow map, maybe a little bit harder to see on the screen. Some of this can be updated as we get the final ready for your plan document, but you can kind of really see where these things are located and how the city is positioned within the level of service. Okay, I just wanted to kind of give you a little bit on the survey highlights. I'm not going to go through the whole survey itself. Chad can probably send out the link and you can review really any of the feedback, the comments, see the entire summary analysis. I'm just going to give you a quick overview and a snapshot of really what we got. Again, the survey ran pretty close to Memorial Day to Labor Day. Usually you run it through the summer months just to see what kind of responses and what the user base is out there. So you had 332 that actually started the survey, 192 completed at a completion rate of 58%. The 332, any questions that they did answer does get accumulated within the results itself as well. So you are not going to be missing out on any of those that didn't really actually go to the completion of the survey. So looking at some of the interesting facts that we found, we did ask a question what the public thought as far as amenities added or expanded. Restrooms were actually number one when you start to look at some of these things. And then you were looking at canoe, kayak access. The water seems to be very popular these days. Then you went into the nature areas that people are looking for, maybe some outdoor fitness stations, and that could be a good recommendation that we're kind of looking at. They seem to be popping up in a lot of the parks out there. That seems to be a popular fit with the health and having the kids play on the playground. Picnic shelters, trails came in there, and then even tennis courts. So you do have a lot of tennis courts, but maybe, you know, there's a trend that's still going in New London with that. Usage and satisfaction. Not really a surprise here, but your greatest use park, Hatton. So 92% of the survey takers actually are utilizing Hatton Park. Memorial Park came in second at 57, Pfeiffer Park at 52, the Riverwalk 43%, and then the pool. So those are really your highest utilized facilities that you have going for in the city of New London. And then as far as we asked them, would they recommend the city of New London parks to a friend? Most people would give it on a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the best star. You know, you're looking at, you know, the 3 and 4, 5 or 3 to 4 range, and even, you know, 95 actually said 5 stars. So, you know, you're doing a good job out there. The same thing with satisfaction. How satisfied were they with the parks? So again, you know, you're looking at that 3 and 4, always room for improvement to get that 5-star level that's out there. Nope. I don't know if I went too far here. Okay, then we actually asked what kind of trails are people preferring out there. So again, this is not a bicycle and pedestrian plan. That is something else that East Central does do, and that would probably be a good recommendation for the City of New London as well, to have that in place. But you know, looking at the trails, it seems to be very popular out there as far as people are saying, 82% like all types of trails. But most of them, when you start looking at, the percentage-wise, 49% actually preferred the paved off-road. And that actually does come into play with ADA accessibility as well. So, you're looking at, okay, well, we have on-street bike lanes, we have some gravel base out there. Yeah, the preferred paved off-road is expensive, because you're paving that portion, but it's just basically stating what people really want. And then we came down and really asked, as far as the amenities go, how is the city of New London really doing today? What is the amenity ratings? So access, getting to the parks, was really number one. So, again, the parks are located in a good area as far as where the people are utilizing those park spaces. Your fishing and boating is also doing very well. Same thing with the boat launches and everything as far as the kayaking, canoe. There's always improvements that can be made, but as far as people being satisfied, they said that everything was okay and going great. Same thing with the playgrounds in there as far as the third coming down. And then as far as, again, just kind of reiterating the facts as far as what is really needed and more. So you're looking at, okay, New London in the future or tomorrow. Again, the restrooms were kind of the main focus. People really were focused on the restrooms, and sometimes that's not really a surprise. But you do start looking at, okay, well, how can we get that amenity up a little bit? And again, the trails, winter programming, I guess, was the other one that came in there. So I know you guys got the sledding hill, used to be an ice rink, I think, by the old Solders Pond there. I'm not sure if you guys still do that, Chad, but I remember ice skating out there when I was a child myself. So, but still, maybe just a few more winter programs too, even at the senior center, is I guess what people are asking for. As far as maintenance, again, this was on a 1 to 5 star scale. Your trail conditions out there were ranked, 5 being the highest. Trails were actually rated at 3.41. So most park users were concerned with the maintenance of the facilities such as shelters and restrooms. So that was kind of the main focus. So I'm guessing, when you're setting up your maintenance schedule, I guess you got to have probably maybe your priority set. Where should you really focus on and what really needs to be more attentive to with the park crew. Then you started to look at really picnic areas, the aesthetics out there, landscaping, your pool and aquatics, trail pruning and surfacing, and then, the tree care and the ball diamonds really didn't, come in that much. So it was pretty close as far as, you're looking at that overall 3-star scale. But, the facilities, I think that really jumped out at me at the 4.12. So again, it's just what the users are telling us. Then we came down and actually asked the funding option. So this is always an interesting question because, okay, how can we make these improvements? Where can we get these fundings? Where can we actually get the money to make these improvements? How can we implement our action plan? So we did ask that question, and again, donations and grants were the biggest responses. Shared use options, so maybe splitting off a maintenance or something with another community, the school district, that kind of thing. That came in pretty much right at the 3-star range. It's not really a surprise that people didn't really want a tax increase or, to pay a park user fee to utilize any of the park spaces that were out there. So again, eligibility for the park and rec plan does show, going after those grants are very important, and to have the corp, utilized as that, Bible out there as far as what you guys are going to be doing for implementation strategies. Okay, just kind of an overview on some of the social connectiveness. Just wanted to kind of see where you guys are at in some of the programs. Looking at the youth programs that seem to be the highest overall rating, 60%, maybe a biking, walking group. Again, those were pretty high ratings as far as what the trends are basically out there. And then, even looking at the children, the play groups, looking at, your events and everything else that you have out there. But really what stood out to me again was your youth programs and the trails, and that seems to be the trend across the board right now. And how they actually obtain that information, you got the good Facebook, the social media site, and actually that's probably that's actually even more, 87%. I think I put 82 on the first one here. But even looking at your Facebook page, going to the city website at 48%. And then, you could almost tie in now what you guys have for your production. You guys are actually doing some marketing videos out there via YouTube. So, that we don't really have a statistics for, but I can tell you that people are really looking at the videos, and video is really the way to go when you're trying to market your parks and get people out there to try to utilize some of those. And then this is just a depiction of really where your user base is coming from. So, most are right within the city boundary, but you do have a bunch that are scattered throughout. Town of Caledonia obviously is really close. Town of Muckwa, you got Hortonia on the other side. But even Manawa, Fremont areas, people are coming in to really utilize the park spaces and probably the pool itself. So it just really gives you a good depiction as far as, how far people are willing to travel to actually go and utilize a good facility or a nice park. Oops, I don't want to get through here too fast, but again, your average age of your survey taker was pretty much within the realm as far as your census data showed. So again, within that 30 to 40 age group. And then as far as how many out there actually really had the kids, again, your youth programs. So this is really what it's showing. You got a good 70% between that, good 6 to 18-year-olds that are looking at it. But you also have couples. So, or singles out there that don't have kids. So it's a way to actually try to look at what you have as facilities and try to find that balance. So that's always where you're looking at, what is trending, how can we actually support all our age groups within the city itself, besides even ADA accessibility as well. And these were some possible recommendations. So I just wanted to kind of go through. We did get quite a few comments through the survey itself. These were just some of the ones that I just kind of pulled up. A lot of people were talking about the trails within Hatton Park, just trying to get those kind of cleaned up. I thought having like the obstacle or American Ninja course, that was pretty interesting, where we did get a few comments in on that. Even urban playgrounds, like, you do have some sitting areas downtown. So, I guess just some other ideas that maybe somewhat that maybe we don't even think about even as planners or city committee members. So flowers and landscaping were great. Some of the tennis courts maybe could be updated. Some of the play equipment, all these things are really kind of phased approaches to, as far as, what money do you have and what priority does that take? So again, programming, pet-friendly walking trails and areas, basketball court came in there, outdoor fitness area, maybe downtown. You guys have a lot of the artwork and different things going on. So you are kind of creating that urbanized landscape to begin with. This is always going to be a controversial subject as far as ATV, UTV routes. Some people love it, some people hate it. Wapaka County does have an ordinance out there. Within a community, You know, there is a time and place for some of these things. So, you know, it is something that would have to possibly be discussed. And if there was enough people that were willing to look at that as a trend, that would have to be probably addressed. So again, you know, the boat launch, kayak canoe launches. I know, Chad, you've been working on the Newton Blackmore Trail for quite a while, getting those connections in. And then, you know, cleaner restrooms programming again, and then ADA accessibility kind of rounded up a lot of the common comments that were in the survey itself. So that was it pretty much for the survey. Did anybody have any quick comments themselves as far as, was there any surprises right offhand that you thought when I was trying to share these screens at all?
I guess on our big facilities, the stadium and the building we rent out, do they create quite a bit of income?
Okay, yep.
What
You're
was it,
talking
Tom?
about a lot of the, go ahead.
The revenue coming in from them.
Or I guess I don't understand the question.
Well, we rent those buildings out.
Yes.
So where does that revenue go?
Oh, it goes back into the general fund or any revenue that comes in for rentals and things like that. Yep. So
you're talking about the shelters in Hatton Park mostly, like Camp Hatton and some of the other shelters that are up there?
yep, any shelter rentals, just where the revenue is going for that.
Yep. Okay.
So any other comments or questions on the data? It was really interesting to see that data come through, and I want to thank Casey for doing that video again, because once the video went out, boom, I mean, we got a bunch of different, you know, you could see the increase of people getting that survey link, so that worked out really well. So
It's interesting. Some of the stuff on our agenda tonight is on this last page here.
we talk about kayak launches and other things. We, you know, Trish doesn't know this, but we're going in our second reading for an ordinance for the ATV, UTV trails, New London next week. So I mean, it's all coming down the pipe. So, you know, the city and the council has been addressing, you know, some of these things. Obviously, we've got more to do, but
Yeah.
you know, pretty cool.
Chad,
Yeah. And it. Yep.
I'd like
Go
to
ahead.
that those tennis court things, that seems like a real back and forth issue. To begin with, it costs so much to resurface them, and we don't really see the use of it as much as we did years ago. So it's kind of a, I mean, how many of them do we actually need in town?
The tennis, school district uses tennis courts every year. They haven't had a home tournament in 2 years, I think 2 years.
They don't want to chip in and pay for them either.
Right, that's something that we'd have to figure out.
You know, we can't just keep. But I mean,
Yeah.
public wise, people don't use them, and yet they're saying they want them. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Well, that comes in with the school district using them, also comes in with our citizens going out there and using them outside of school
Okay,
time
I
hours.
see.
Yeah.
And there's, I mean, when I go past Hatton, I mean, there's usually somebody at those courts, you know, playing, you know, maybe not all the time, but there's, you know, but do we need 8 courts in the community for just recreational based? Yeah. But I think we got to continue those talks with the school district to see what, like
Yeah.
it said, shared, what was it, shared resources, Trish, or shared, yeah, to work
Yeah,
together.
you want some
with the
shared use. Yep.
Yep. So I think we continue those conversations and see where we're gonna go.
Only thing I would add is it's no surprise that it's bathrooms. I
Mhm.
mean, all our bathrooms are, except for Piper, are old.
Yep.
And it's
Yep.
not a surprise that we need upgrades there.
Yeah. Yeah, and all that stuff does cost money in order to kind of get those upgrades too. But, you know, you start to look in your phased approach for the 5-year plan, you know, you kind of go from one park, then go to the next one, you know, and sometimes you only have so much money that you're going to be able to work with. You said a lot of your shelters, all that money that people are renting too, that goes into the general fund. Well, you know, money is really being utilized for whatever park they're renting too. So obviously those restrooms are getting used. So maybe there's a way that some of that money can actually go towards the fixing up of the restrooms or playgrounds or any of the other equipment as well. So I know you do a CIP every year as far as what your budget is, entailing. But yeah, again, it's hard to find that balance. It's hard to break even, I guess you could say, with the funding that you have and what you really need to get out and get done out there as far as maintenance concerns. But yeah, definitely something to kind of keep an eye on, I guess.
Anything else? All right, keep going, Trish.
Yep. Just kind of want to tell you guys, I guess, the next step on this. And really, it's more of the goal building exercise. So I'm thinking at the next meeting, give you guys a little bit of homework. We'll do a quick SWOT analysis and hopefully kind of see where the Park and Rec Committee are at. And then I like to actually go into a goal building exercise where we're looking at what can we measure out there. So this kind of goes with that phase 4 approach. What is specific, what is measurable, what can the city really achieve in that time? What is relevant? What really is a priority out there as far as what the Park and Rec plan is going to show. And then we'll break that down into 7 categories. So I call this usually the 7-10 goal building exercise. And Chad, I'll send you some of the forms that we can pass along to the group here. But health and fitness, variety, conservation, accessibility, and design. Again, we're talking about those partnerships, finances, cost effectiveness, and the overall quality of life. So those 7 categories, I think, can really build upon what a community has out there and how those goals can actually be adjusted. So that's kind of our next step in the process. And so again, we're kind of on our final phases here. What is your, kind of keep, I guess, this in mind when we're looking at maybe the goals for the next time. What is the winning aspiration out there? What is City of New London's winning play? Or, where will they play, for one? And then how do we actually get out there and actually spend the money, or actually get the money to make those improvements? What capabilities have to be in place in order to do that? What tools are really out there to make it happen? So those are just some of the final thoughts, even with the survey and everything else that we just talked about tonight. Chad and I actually kind of talked about this, and I'm not sure how the committee feels about it. We did get a lot of responses with the public survey, and it's really not required. But we could actually pull in another absentee voting sticker board if we think that would work. I know with COVID-19, it's been a really struggle to try to get a lot of people out there to physically vote and do some of these kind of things, but it is an option. It's an option that we could look at and then compare that to what we got also with the survey itself. And then really wrapping it up with your SWOT and the goal building exercise with the next meeting to pull in all those recommendations and create that action plan. So that's pretty much where we're at. We're getting pretty close here as far as wrapping up the plan itself. But just wanted to get your thoughts on this, get a little more feedback from the committee, and just see what you guys would feel you really want to see in the plan itself, I guess, too.
Any comments? You guys like where this is headed? I mean, the survey information is always really good. Hear back from the public, see what they're feeling. The survey results were, you always would like more, but it was a good start. You're good with that. I think COVID's going to be an issue trying to get more public personal feedback. We're not interacting with anybody. The only thing, Trish, is maybe if we can pull it off, maybe we could put up some of these absentee sticker boards at our polling places. And when people come in, maybe if they want to give us more feedback that way. So you and I can talk about that. But I think everything else, the schools are all pretty much virtual right now. So it's going to be hard to really capture
Yeah.
that much more.
Right. And I know that's the challenge that we're kind of facing with all of our plans these days. But yeah, I mean, if it's, people are kind of social distancing and everything else, but if we can just put up a board, throw some stickers on the side, you can take a picture of it, Chad, later on, and I can actually tally the results as we're going through this digitally. That might be just an option that we can look at too. So yeah, it's definitely not required, but it would just give you a little bit more ammunition, I guess, to kind of compare that with what we got from the survey itself also. But yeah, I'll work with Chad on that, and we can kind of discuss that a little bit more.
Anything else from the committee of what you would like to see targeted for something, or do you like what we got so far?
I think it's right on track. I mean, in my opinion.
Just one comment on the survey. I didn't get to see or take the survey myself, and I apologize for that. But it just seems weird that 140 people started it but didn't finish it. Was there some kind of pop-up, or do you think it got to be long for people, or?
I think, I mean, Trish, I mean, it was what, 20 questions or something. So, I mean, I'm sure people got halfway into it and all right, I'm done, type thing.
Yeah.
But Trish, correct me if I'm wrong, surveys that you do, that's kind of normal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And sometimes when you're asking some of the matrix questions, you want to make sure that you have all the amenities covered. So I tried to split that up a little bit, but sometimes, yeah, you're starting to look at the survey. You want to try to make it as easy as possible. But yeah, definitely there could be just a time frame on there as far as people just don't want to finish it that way.
The same thing when they go on Facebook, Casey making videos. If the video's too long, they watch for so long and then they fall off. So it's kind of the same concept, I guess.
It's frustrating
because it's attention span. I mean, that's basically kind of what it is too. So, I think using Get Feedback by having visual pictures, I think that helped a lot with our responses besides, and trying to make the click and point as easy as possible when they're looking at it that way. But yeah, you're right. Mm-hmm.
Hey, you got a comment?
Frustrating because there's 7,000 people in town and we only got 382 to start a survey.
I'm actually surprised we got that many.
Well, they like to chirp.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, that's the problem. That's what I mean.
They like to sit back and chirp that they want stuff changed.
Is there any way that we could put something about the dog park on there?
We did have a question about the dog park.
Is there?
Didn't we,
Yeah.
Trish?
Yeah, there was a question.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
There was, I think, a question on the dog park itself as far as the amenity. Did you want something else on as far as what improvements that you could really do for the dog park? Or are you
I didn't really know. I was just seeing that there wasn't, I didn't see any discussion on that, and I didn't remember that in the survey.
Yeah, it showed one dog park.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where that one was. I think it was more in the amenities portion of it, or the pet friendly areas. I think is really where it came up.
Go forward one more. Look back. I thought I saw something.
No. I remember them saying pet friendly areas, not necessarily just the dog park itself, but actually walking their dogs on trails. I think was one of the things.
And we can look that up on our end.
Oh yeah.
Because we got the results. I've got that link that she showed you before that I can give it to you guys so you guys can see the data, from the survey. So not to push it along, but it's already been almost 45 minutes. But anything else for the group?
That's really all I had. I will pass along, like I said, the next just kind of goal building exercise as far as homework goes. And then we can just kind of cover the action plan and any other public input pieces you guys feel is necessary. So, but yeah, I guess we're pretty much at that point.
Great.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
No, thank you guys.
Looks really good.
Thank you. Yep. Thank you for your time, guys. Appreciate it.
Okay, moving along here, consider a request for hunting at 1112 Mulligan Drive. Is that, you guys, one of you want to come up here and?
It'd be best if we could get kind of in front of a microphone, but I'll just kind of lead into it. We did get a request from the owners at 1112 Mulligan Drive, and I'll let him introduce himself, but kind of talk about the request, I guess.
Justin Brinkman, property owner of that at 1112 Mulligan Drive. And I'm just looking for a request just for hunting with low-powered firearms, just for property damage. When we had the geese come in just before the geese opener, it destroyed our pond with the fecal matter. Muskrats are digging holes all along our ponds. We tried trapping in the spring, but with minimal impact with the amount of muskrats. We're a little bit more power against them. And now we're starting to deal with we got a fox coming on our property, where if a fox gets in our chicken coop, we want to be able to take care of it instead of just watching it eat all our chickens that we put a lot of time and money into. The other thing would be coyotes. We're going to be raising lambs. And if they get in by our lambs, they can take out a lamb easily. And we just want a little bit more leeway. And we're not asking for high-powered rifles. We're just, your low-powered guns and stuff. And plenty of area out there. If you're responsible, you need to be responsible while doing it. With any firearm, you need to be responsible in which way you're shooting, and got fields on both sides of us. What is?
I know Chad and Chief looked into it.
Yeah, that's what I spoke to Chad today.
So I talked to Justin this morning, just kind of made sure, he's aware of the meeting and everything. Chief and I did go out there and look at the property. You can see it up on the map right here. This is the parcel that Justin owns right there. The concern we do have is with the neighboring businesses and then residentials. And you can kind of see on the sides right here, there are several residential properties. The areas in white are outside the city limits. The areas in color are inside the city limits. So these properties are inside the city limits. And just for reference, if nobody can visualize it, this is the lumber company over here, and this is the Larson Co-op right here. So they get their access from Mulligan Drive. So again, Chief and I went out there, and we're both very concerned about the proximity. Like Justin said, I mean, it is, there's our neighbors close that you'd have to be responsible, but just with the proximity with everything, and kind of the lack of tree cover to three sides of it, and the concept that if you do something for one, what are you gonna have to do for others as well? So I don't know.
There's other ways to get muskrat. I mean, there's trappers around London here that would probably be glad to come out there and trap.
I tried that in the spring.
You tried it, but maybe you're not a professional trapper.
Right.
There's some guys around here that are expert trappers.
Yeah.
And I know there's a number of Jim Bender for one. There are a number of them around here that would be glad to come over here and trap your property for you.
Yeah.
On that note, I used to do nuisance trapping for different groups and private property owners. One of the problems with the spring is, the fur prices are terrible right now. Nobody wants to trap anything and then let it go to waste. But your prime of your furs by spring, or the trapping season typically ends in spring. But there are things that the state now allows, and I would highly suggest talking to conservation wardens. Campground owners go through this all the time. But there are things that you can do. Colony traps, for example, it's basically a large fish trap, and you could put them in your pond. And, I've seen as many as 30, 40 muskrat in a couple of those traps in a day. And it's less labor intensive, but definitely talk to the local conservation warden, because there's other things that you can get permitted for your geese problem too. if they're just flying through in the fall, they're gonna be geese attracted to water and that grass around that area. But if it's raising young and different things like that, they will allow treating the nest, or, you know, you don't want to do it on your own, you get a big fine, but there's things as simple as cooking oil on, and again, consult the local conservation warden, but a light coating of oil on the eggs, and they'll continue to sit on them until it's too late in the year. They still think they're going to hatch them, and
Mhm.
but that you need DNR request for. But there are other alternatives to some of the firearm stuff. But yeah, the muskrats definitely deal. You know, you can deal with it because I used to do it. The geese, I don't know. It's kind of a
Yeah, they're big
statewide
the fox
issue.
and the coyotes.
I know with project I worked on, a new thing was we had to work with the airport over to, well, back this up. We had to work with an airport to put up a structure, and that structure had to have a retention pond. The retention pond had geese that came there, and we were going to move it. Well, that was going to develop more geese in that area, which is going to affect the airport. And with what that did, working with the DNR, they have a thing where you put wires across it, and that doesn't allow for them to land or take off, so they just stay away from it. And that's a non-lethal perception to it. Just an idea when you talk, if you talk to DNR.
Bob?
Within regards, like, we have $10,000 horses out there. Like, if we can't get rid of the muskrats and we start breaking horses' legs, like, that bill adds up real quick, and we gotta keep calling the vets in. And with your wire thing, like, I don't know if it was mentioned, like, that's a 33-acre chunk, and that's a 3-acre pond. That's a lot of wire, and now we can't even use it for fishing. So like I'm completely listening, but it's just, some of these ideas aren't feasible. Like with the wire, it's just, that's a lot of wire. And with trapping, I mean, you can do your best, but you're trying to also put, like with the foxes and coyotes, that's a 1-inch print on a trap and 33 acres. That's literally a shot in the dark.
Chief Slater, you have any comments to?
No, just pretty much the same concerns as Chad. When we look around there, you got housing to the south, you got housing to the east, businesses to the west. The north is fairly open. But once again, like Chad had said, there's not a whole lot of structure there, and there's nothing in our ordinance that regulates what type of gun you can use. And, you know, it's one of those things that, I'm not saying these guys aren't irresponsible, and most likely probably would be responsible people, but you gotta be careful with being in the city as to what we allow. I think the current hunting lands we allow right now are to the west of, up by Walmart, that shoot out into the Muckwest Swamp, and then also out by 54, where the Thurn Farm is. I think those are the only lands that we have right now, and they're all very wooded to one area, and also go into the swamp areas without much for residences around. So those are my biggest concerns. You know, I understand the problems with the agriculture and stuff like that, but you know, we are within city limits also. We gotta be careful of it. I'm sure that there will be citizens making complaints on noise if we start hunting too much. You know, bow hunting is always allowed within the city limits under certain limits and stuff also, but I think we want to be careful with firearms, just being able to take into consideration the direction of travel and trajectories that we're shooting out, especially when we're surrounded on 3 sides already.
Based on what I'm hearing from Chad and the chief, my recommendation would be not to allow hunting there. Anybody from the council got anything else to say about it? We need
Probably wouldn't be a bad idea, one way or the other, either to, if you're gonna allow it, then we gotta make the ordinance change and go through that whole process. So that includes making the ordinance, notifying the residents that are within so many feet of that ordinance for the public hearing. So there's those steps that would have to be if you guys are going to allow it. But if you're going to deny the request, then you could just, someone would make that motion and second it, and then it would just stop right at this committee.
I'd look for a motion
My
to,
concern just is that the more we start allowing it around the city limits, I know we got a couple of spots. The more we start allowing it, the more we're going to be asked. And I think we're opening up, and we've discussed this different times before in the committee, that people have came to us and asked, and we've turned them down for the same reason, because of proximity to other houses and stuff. But if you start opening it up and changing the ordinance, you know, you're going to be justifying yourself all the time.
I'd look for a motion to deny the request.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
So one no, right? Fred, no, or
You say no, Fred?
no. So it passes with one
Nay.
nay to deny the request.
Okay, thank you. Discuss request to promote an off-road bike trail on the south side of Floral Hill Cemetery.
Can I start this one off? or do you want me to? The off-road bike trail.
Yeah, well,
You can start. Okay. So I don't know who was approached, but the mayor was talking to me and has some requests for kind of promoting the back of Floral Hill Cemetery. If you guys remember, we did a park tour how many years ago? If you guys remember how bad the mosquitoes were, that's kind of what stuck in my head when we were out there.
I remember it.
But we kind of went out there and just looked at it, and it's kind of a cool property, but we haven't really promoted it. It's part of the cemetery, Floral Hill Cemetery, and we do have at least 2 commission members, and Jamie's here tonight to kind of bring the perspective from the cemetery commission. But there obviously has been a request for kind of promoting it, maybe developing it a little bit more, and going from there. So
This gentleman to my left is the person that brought it to my attention. We discussed a little bit, and I said I would talk to Chad about it, bring it to you guys and find out, and here we are, so.
Yeah, looking back 5-6 years ago when I was still in high school in this town, I know that the adventure course in our high school had taken mountain bikes back out through that area previously. I know that they got groups together on some of the weekends to clear leaves and brush and stuff from the trail. But again, I don't see any promotion or anything about it, so I don't know if it's even still allowed back there, or if that's close to the public. But again, it would be nice to open that back up to mountain biking, because it provides something a little bit more different than like the gravel trail east of town. It's a little bit more challenging, but still easy enough that other people can get into it. My only concern is that, again, it's in the back of the cemetery. So obviously, if it were to increase in popularity, you've got more people coming in through that cemetery. But I think that it's kind of in a good spot that it's something that we can test out, see if it actually gains interest, if it's something worth continuing to promote. And then maybe we need to look at relocating it if that's entirely possible. I guess that's just my biggest concern is location kind of stinks, because it sucks to have people just travel through that cemetery for something that they're not there for the cemetery. But again, I think it's kind of in a good place. It is a cool area. It would provide some fun biking back in that location. And I know that it's been done in years previous, so.
You were the Tiffany Schultz, is that the group that you were involved with?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that Tiffany was
Yeah,
all into that too before.
that
And
was
her
one of the
and her
groups.
husband were gonna do some cleaning up back there.
It was cleaned up one time.
Oh,
They've
was
done
it
that.
one time?
they've done that multiple years.
Oh,
She's
have
come
they?
up to me multiple years and cleaned it up. I haven't heard anything this year. I'm
And,
sure
and
what
she
going on.
she didn't have, that. We had no real trails, but she would go out there, and I don't think that there's any ordinance or anything that says they can't go out there and use it for that. I mean, it's considered a park.
Okay.
As far as I know.
That's the reason they got some of the cemetery people here.
Okay.
See whether there's an issue with going to the cemetery. Or do you want to comment on it?
Rob, come up to the microphone if you wouldn't mind. So-
I know who that
Well,
is.
we don't want to hear from this guy, do we?
Hi, once again, guys.
Rob?
I know who that is.
We haven't had a chance to discuss it, you know, as the cemetery commission, it came in kind of suddenly, so there's not necessarily a formal thought, or I'm not necessarily representing the other members of the cemetery commission, but I do have some experience with the operation of a single track with Winnebago County. Nothing against it, it's worked well. But I think, are you representing a single individual, or are you?
No, I just
Group or?
expressing interest in the possibility of having the permission to ride back there rather than just hopping the fence and riding it.
No, understood.
Yeah.
Thanks. You know, again, I'm not speaking for the cemetery commission, but I think one of the things that was brought up right away was the access to it and how things are evolving back there. It concerns, and he even voiced it, you know, there are some obvious things that could happen if it's mismanaged. And that's why I kind of go back to what we have down in Winnebago County, which is a formal organization, a club that heads it up, oversees it, looks at it, repairs it. And it's made a big difference. It's a remote spot we're at, way out in the country, Walkout Creek Dam. It's built on the side of a hill. It's a very challenging one. It attracts a lot of people from around the area. So it's not a benign facility. But it makes a difference to have an organization taking care of it.
Yep, yeah.
One that's answerable. I don't know, Chad, was it the thoughts that it would be guided by the recreation department?
This is where we're at right now. So the
I didn't know what role, but I guess, Lori, maybe you can second this. I see it as being kind of a matter of being managed,
Yeah, I guess
accountability.
recently we had been talking about the fact that that back gate is actually locked right now. Is that still the case?
Casey was, or not Casey,
Jamie?
Jamie. We just talked about last night. It's not locked right now, is it?
No, it's not, but there's definitely concerns about it. It should be locked.
Yeah. So,
And I can go into that further if you'd like.
I mean, we've got it closed down because we're taking brush and compost behind the wastewater treatment plant instead of going back there. Because we've had, all the council knows, we've had problems with people dropping construction material back there and couches and stuff that we don't want to take and manage. So we've changed that. So that has kind of closed. We attempted to close the access off, but it sounds like people are just popping the gate open and doing what they want back there yet. So we got to kind of investigate that. But
I think the access is the issue. And we're kind of working on an issue right now with having people in the cemetery doing things they shouldn't be doing at hours they shouldn't be doing them. So I guess, you know, not against it, not for it, just wondering how would it work and
It's definitely something we'd have to work out with, again, more of an organization that there are some assurances that we can guide it along. It's nothing that, well, you know where I stood on it. I thought that it was an underutilized facility. It'd be great to bring it online, use it as an asset. It has wonderful elements. And I agree with you. It's a prime spot for a mountain bike track or a facility. So not opposed to it, but the concept would have to be more developed and kind of overseen by what we can allow, what we can't, what's best for the cemetery first, of course.
Mike, got something?
Is this motorized bike?
Pedal bike.
Pedal bikes.
Yeah, we have a problem out there with people and noise. Come and sees us every other month. Pedal bikes, be a different story.
Maybe it's something if you want to look into to get a group or something or somehow or other get something together, we could come back to the cemetery that maybe they could have come in there certain times or something. Is that something that would work or?
Yeah, if getting an organization together so that there's, again, like that accountability and where, again, can coordinate something rather than just random people coming back in there or working on it. I'm all for trying to put something together so that we're a body that can be recognized rather than just.
Maybe we look at that. If you want to get something going and come back to this committee again, maybe we can
Absolutely.
talk to you guys again and maybe there's something that can be worked out.
Jamie's got a comment in the back.
Just so you're aware, the utility company actually has a water tower out there. And along between the pit and where the cemetery is, they have an access road that goes back there. And I don't know how much access that would be or whatever, but that's something to check into. That way people are not going through the cemetery. They can ride their bikes right down that access road.
Okay.
And kind of stay out of the cemetery. But with people that are going in there now, you got people cutting chainsaws, using chainsaws back there, and it went from about 75 cars a day down to about 20 now, going back to that area back there. So there is a lot of activity in there, and I just hate to see somebody flying through there on a bike and somebody's cutting a tree, with a chainsaw, and it just is, it's a bad idea. But if you can get that access road use up from the utilities, that I have no problems with the use of the woods back there other than upkeep, but just that access.
That should be our smallest hurdle though, is getting them back there.
I think it's all good discussion. There's room for improvement and ways to move forward.
I
It
think
seems
that's,
like you're willing to head some things up and
I think if he's willing to look it up, I think it's worth looking into. If you want to come back to another meeting, whenever you get, some material together or something, we can get.
Reach out to Jay too and see we can contact him and see what the access would be on the east side there too.
Okay.
So we can be in touch about it, because we'd love to see use made of it, but we want to do it in a safe way.
Yeah, understandable.
would the committee be interested in taking a field trip out there in the near future or maybe spring to see what this gentleman is talking about?
Yes.
So in the spring when all the mosquitoes are out.
We can,
I'd prefer the next
maybe
meeting with the hat
November if
on.
it's not cold.
Yeah.
Right.
Maybe in our November meeting if it's not cold.
I'll
Is that
take the
a
cold
tentative?
over the mosquitoes any day though. I think, well, this gentleman does his end of some research and tries to look at what a group would organizing. We as a committee need to keep that dialogue going too of what it would look, and there are factors for us. We know the cameras are still up there from, we've used cameras to try to capture and arrested or ticketed many people for illegal dumping back there. What's it gonna look like when all the brush is gone, or is that still gonna be a staging point for the brush?
Staging point, we're working on that.
What, I know our traffic counts were probably much higher than 75 a day when it was used as a compost site. And we never really had I couldn't believe that my whole life as a homeowner going through, that was the site where we had to take our clippings and everything. And I couldn't believe there weren't more complaints back then with that kind of traffic. Although both police chiefs we've had in that era really monitored it and issued a lot of tickets for dumping. But as a committee and as a city, we can't just put all the work on this young guy's shoulders either. We have to think about it. Like Rob said, develop the thought. Look at ways we might be able to contribute. I know other high school teachers besides Trisha Schultz, John Ruckdeschel had kids pulling Japanese knotweed, which is a huge problem in some areas back there. And they take the science class back there to identify trees and stuff. So I know the school district's looking at some unique uses of the school forest too. And once those meetings come back online in that discussion, we might be able to learn from their discussions out there too. So we have some work to do as well, and appreciate your creative thought on it and bringing it up and approaching the mayor.
Absolutely.
If you want to get something together and we can see what we can look at, maybe get something going on this end. It's a beautiful, beautiful area. I've been in there a couple times. It's beautiful in there.
We can tentatively take a field trip after your next
Sure.
meeting.
Sure.
And that'll give the utility or the cemetery commission opportunity to think about it, talk about it directly, to see if there's any concerns that you guys can think of, and then bring it back to this next meeting and continue that.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we'll reach out to Jay then too and see kind of what the options are.
Cool.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving along here, discuss options to promote New London as a kayaking destination.
Yeah, so one thing we've kind of talked about in the past is promoting New London a little bit more as kayaking. The mayor's been in talks with some individuals in town. Casey's done a great job and working on, well, Casey, why don't you come on down? There's you. Been utilizing Casey's talents to help us with this, but just want to kind of have a general discussion quick about what we're kind of doing to promote New London as a kayaking destination. It was interesting to see on the survey that Trish now was talking about with our court plan, there was some talk about in there about kayaking and promoting it more. So that was really cool about what we've been talking about. So tasked Casey into looking at creating a kayaking video, which he's done. We can kind of show it to some of the people tonight here. And I've also tasked Casey to start working on kind of a website page and just promoting what he's been doing with the kayaking thing. And we'll even try to tie it into more silent sport type activities, but I don't know if you got anything to add with.
Yeah, the goal of the video, are you going to show the video?
If you want, we can show it.
Yeah, I mean, and this would be the premiere. Nobody else has seen this. So
Did you have anything on the handicap? Was a handicap launch on there?
No.
No, it's not.
We're going to probably approach that once that actually happens.
Oh,
we'll actually talk about that in the next topic.
Yeah,
for sure. But really the idea of the video is to first, reinvigorate the interest of the local community, because I don't feel you can sell people outside the community on being a kayak destination until you can convince your own citizens to dust off their kayaks. Maybe people have that. So the goal of the video is to first get that interest locally, and then branch out. And I know there's some other things that we're going to be doing beyond this video. Once we do are set to release it, which is going to happen in the springtime, we're going to run kind of a 15-second version of this longer form video, and then direct people from that ad directly to that website where they can see the longer form video as well. Get the local community interested and remind them of an awesome natural resource that we have. Target people outside of the community with a 15-second teaser video, directing them back to see this video on our website. And then I think towards the end of the video, we talk a lot about, people getting into kayaking for the first time in April. Actually, the star of the film is here today. She's right there. April showed up and she does a wonderful job just kind of explaining her own personal interest in it and kind of how it branched out and turned into what she calls an addiction. So,
has April seen it yet?
She has not.
Oh, perfect.
Wow,
We
your
were
debut.
supposed to, yeah, I know. This is very exciting.
Good.
We were supposed to get together this week and I was going to show her, and then you were like, "Hey, let's show it tonight."
perfect.
And Dave, this is kind of cool stuff that what we're targeting for economic development too. I mean, promoting New London,
exactly.
just promoting the resources, and then this guy right here is really going to take us to the next level. Using that Facebook capacity for targeted advertising. So really cool stuff.
And I had a ton of fun chasing these guys down, the Embarrass and the Wolf. It was awesome. It was a great day. Better part of a Sunday. So enjoy.
Sometimes we go kayaking with a purpose, and sometimes we just go and see where the river takes us. So what makes New London perfect for kayaking is, for us, it's close to home. Just accessibility. I can load up my kayaks and be on the river in 10 minutes. I could take a short trip before work if I wanted to go for a half an hour and just paddle around because I know I'm gonna have a stressful day, or get done at 6 o'clock at night and just go out for an hour or two. Once we're on the river, there's plenty of places that we could get out. If it's a couple hour float, there's sandbars that we can get out and just stretch and relax. They recently put in a new docking system. We could get out and go have dinner downtown. It's just nice to have options, even though it's a small town. We have multiple river systems with the Wolf River and the Embarrass flowing through town. So it just depends on what we're looking for that day. We can go on 3-hour trip, or we can go on a half an hour trip. So it has a lot of diversity. Kayaking here in London gives us that. So another thing that I love about kayaking in London is the scenery. A lot of it is seriously some of the most beautiful stuff I have seen. The Wolf River Art League has been doing murals everywhere, and thankfully they put at least a handful of them along the riverside where we can see them. We've been kayaking tons of places, and I don't believe there's anywhere else we went that you could see murals like this. It's like a floating art gallery, and it's just right here in our backyard. So that's advice I could give somebody just starting out in kayaking is probably to find somebody who already has a kayak. Find somebody who's doing it already. We have tons of family and friends that we have got into the whole kayaking thing. Most of my family said they might have an addiction. We have like tiny kayaks. And in that little fleet of ours, we have about 4 or 5 different types of kayaks. We have the sit in and sit on. We have some that are more stable than others. I would try out as many different kinds as you can. To me, kayaking is something we can do as a family. I think that's one of the main reasons that we got into it. Anybody of any age can do it. We can go fishing together, or my husband can fish and the kids and I can just float and catch up. Sometimes we go kayaking with a person, and sometimes we just go and see where the river takes us.
Beautiful.
Congratulations, Casey, for another awesome video, and congratulations to April for being a new Facebook YouTube star in the near future, right? Okay. So, but just to kind of give you an idea, those are the cool things that we want to keep on promoting from New London and just put us on the map. So, I don't know, any comments, any questions?
Yeah, I've as you guys know, I live on the river, and I've really seen kayaking kind of take off in the last couple of years. It's not unusual to see 25, 30 kayaks come down the river during the summertime. And it's a family thing, like was mentioned in the film and so forth. Sometimes you'll see the family coming down. There are a number of, I think, different routes that could be set up, like between the Embarrass and the Wolf. Wolf sometimes, I don't know, as a kayaker, I'd be willing to go down the Wolf, or be anxious to go down the Wolf because of all the boat traffic sometimes. Whereas the Embarrass is on the other hand, very quiet, peaceful. I think for the most part, you don't have to worry about running into many boats there. And so I think we could set up trails, different trails from maybe outside the city or whatever. For example, you could put in that at Dam Yankees. That would be, I don't know, a 3 or 4 hour ride, I would think. I've never done it myself, but so you have longer rides, could have shorter rides like off Spur Road and so forth off the Embarrass. And we could be a real kayak destination, I think, worldwide. I mean, as was mentioned in the film, it's so many beautiful sights and so forth, and it's so peaceful, so relaxing, that type of thing. We could really be encouraging a lot of tourists to come to New London. The other thing is just a business. I went to Shackton, I think it was last year, my daughter, and I rented a kayak. There's a little business in Shackton that you can rent a kayak. And I thought, we should have something like that in New London, that renting kayaks to somebody and so forth. And hopefully John will take that up one of these days. But to me, there's opportunities for business. If we can bring those kayaks through town, like they mentioned, they're going to stop at restaurants, they're going to stop at gas stations and so forth. So it's going to, from an economic standpoint, great idea. Something we should really be promoting, in my opinion.
Totally agree. And I think we're going to be picking a brain of April because she's kind of our resident expert on it, and exactly what you said. And that's why Casey was going to be working on the website, because if someone's from Appleton, well, where do I go? That's why Casey is going to be working and trying to April knows where these routes are. She knows from here to here, it takes however long, and that'll be really good to have on that website so people know where to go.
I was just curious, April, did you ever go from Dam Yankees down to Milan? How was it take?
April, come up here and explain some of your trips. You and I have had extensive conversations on all kinds of this aspect in town. You have 4 or 5 different trips. You have a whole pamphlet full of ideas.
So the Damn Yankees one, my husband and I did one day. And it's a little bit harder to tell because when you're talking about like in Shacks and the Dragonfly paddlers rentals, they're just paddling down. They're going from one point to another. They're only paddling. So what they could do in 3 hours, if my husband and I are going, or even if we're bringing the kids, our kids are older now, we'll be fishing and stuff as well. So it'll take us a little bit longer, but that trip took us about 6 hours. And that's a summer day. We're not paddling unless we have to, honestly. We're going more to relax and enjoy a day off and hopefully catch supper. So maybe you could make it in 4 hours, but
Reason being, my motor conked out on my boat at Dam Yankees, so I floated down the river. Took about 4 hours.
Yeah, and I can see that. But like I said, we'll get out on a sandbar safety. In the video, that is literally my family, every person in that video. So we'll have my parents and my aunts and uncles and my cousins are in there.
And that one was by the dog park, correct? You guys put in there?
That was, the dog park down to the boat landing.
How long was that?
That day.
Average.
Probably 2.5 hours, 3 hours maybe.
And I think that's how we should be selling it, as a leisurely ride for the citizens in London, because I don't see a lot of us being the ones that are gonna go out there and just paddle to paddle.
And then you have another one that's out by Park and Ride.
Yeah, so we would put in at the off the bypass.
Old River.
So it's off the bypass. There's a little I don't think they call it like
Old River.
It's the old river, it's a parking
park
lot.
there.
River shoreline
Yeah.
fishing area is what's on the sign.
Right here.
So we'll put in there and then float down to the boat landing or.
What's your estimated time for something like that?
It's probably a little bit shorter, but it's about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. It just depends on how high the water is or low the water is, or what we're doing at the time.
I think if we can get this information out, so there's like 4 or 5 different trails or routes or whatever you call it, with parking spots by a lot of these. And so people in Appleton, for example, need to know, where do I park my car? Where do I go out? How long is it going to take? Where's somebody have to pick me up, or where do I have to paddle back to, and that kind of stuff.
I'd like to also move into how you talked about accessing the businesses downtown and something like setting up docking systems and to access different ones or promote different places.
So just some of the things that we noticed going down is a lot of times we will go to other towns. We go to Shacks all the time. We have friends who live on the river, and just the way it's set up, it's a little bit longer than a trip than we would do in town here. So we'll do a whole day thing, and we'll bring a grill and find a sandbar and grill out actually, and make a whole day of it. But one of the reasons we do that also is because it's easy to get in and easy to get out when we go there. We're putting in at a boat landing and we're getting out at a boat landing. And when you have people from, my nephews are coming with, who are 8 and 10, all the way up to, like I said, my parents are coming with, it's just easier to launch at a place like that and get out at a place like that, whereas the launches are just nice. When we do it here, my parents still come with, obviously my dad was in the video, but it's a little bit harder. Right now at the dog park, when you're launching, we actually don't use the launch how they intended it. Because the water is lower now. It is probably a 10-foot drop. I mean, Casey saw it the day we were there, and it's all huge rocks and everything. You cannot launch a kayak under there. I mean, you're straight down. Luckily, along the shore, we were able to just, and there's a path there. A lot of people must be using it this way. So we just walk down the shore a little, carry the kayaks, and then put it down further. And that's just because, like I said, it's just an ease of getting in and out. So when he's talking about the docking systems in town here, I mean, they just put in the new one right downtown. It's amazing, except for that, how do you get in and out of a kayak there? You know, I mean, I can pull it up to there, but it's still for my parents to like get in and out, or I have aunts and uncles who are quite a bit older that it's just a little bit tougher. My kids are teenagers, so they're just like, we're out of here, you know? And that's where the Hortonville has, it's called an easy dock kayak launch. And you can literally just paddle right into it. And then you have a base up below you, and then you just stand up and walk out, grab the kayak. Because most of the kayaks are only weighing like 40 to 60 pounds. Some of ours are a lot heavier, but typically a recreational kayak is gonna be like 40 pounds. So they're gonna be easier. So one of the big things, if we want more people to come kayaking here, is gonna be having the launch sites, just trying to upgrade them a little. Maybe having a couple of those kayak launches where you can just paddle in and paddle out, because it's so much easier.
You brought a point like by Dairy Queen having they used to have a dock out there to have a dock, and maybe have area businesses sponsor something like that to say, like, you can get the festival from this dock. You have Dairy Queen, a couple area businesses. You got Little Caesars there to stop.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be difficult at all. Actually, but even the brand new one downtown, if you're your boater coming from Fremont or wherever you're coming from, you know that the dock is here, but you don't know what you can access from that. You know, Star League's running around PMP and everything. I mean, maybe we could team up with them and ask them to just paint on the river wall with water paint or whatever, so you know it's not harming any wildlife. But just saying these are the businesses that are accessible from these docks, you know, and then maybe just adding a couple more down further, so they can access more businesses. You know, it's a, I'm thinking of it just as a way not only to bring kayakers in, but helping the businesses downtown also, because just putting your name on that wall, you know, at least I know, even if I'm not from New London, oh, I can get to El Tequila or Jolly Rogers or Dairy Queen. Who doesn't want to stop at Dairy Queen when it's 98 degrees on the water and you've been on there for a couple hours? You know,
Spin off on that is bathrooms too. I believe it was Pfeiffer Park. You said they have bathrooms, or
Yeah.
wrong, Pfeiffer.
Yeah.
Kind of in the middle of a trip. You don't have to leave the river, but bathrooms are right there off of the park. You can utilize the park well for a little while, get out of the boats.
Right, just get out and stretch. Like I said, we've actually grilled out on a hiking trip. I mean, and we could pack sandwiches and get out there and eat and use the facilities and then get back in. And you're in and out pretty quickly. It's just a matter of access. The one by the launch by the bypass, that one also, when the water's high, it's perfect because you just launch right in. Right now, the water is so low that you have to bring your kayaks down a little trail. But again, it's going down, and if somebody came out there and got it wet on their way out, which is going to happen, it is a mudslide. You know, and we've slid down many times, but
And you're talking limited as far as who can use it,
yeah,
age levels and agility.
right, it is limiting. You just have to be carefuler, and that's what we try to do because we want to go, so we're going to figure it out.
Some of the stuff we got for the dock improvements on here, Chad has got some of your kayak boat launches that that's going to into our discussion on the boat and the dock improvements down. It will be addressing some of the problems that you're talking about.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, just a couple different things would go such a long way. I mean, even if you didn't want to put a regular kayak launch like we were talking out by the bypass, somebody, I don't know who was responsible for taking care of that place, but I mean, just bringing in some kind of backhoe or something and just making it so that's not so steep going down, just pulling back the.
One of the reasons the bypass one wasn't promoted as a boat launch was because the highway department is worried about trailers going in and out of there. That was one of the reasons why there was not a boat launch put there.
Right, and we don't obviously use a trailer at all. We just.
Yeah. So
I thought the DNR didn't want people down in that area.
This site right here is managed by Outagamie County Parks.
Right.
This right here.
But I know along the edges of that, some guys used to go fishing down there and they said that they got told by the DNR they shouldn't be
the
down there.
DOT owns all that.
Oh, the DOT
The
does?
DOT does.
Okay.
Oh, is it down here you're talking?
No, on the
All the
other
way
side.
down,
on the
all the
other
way
side
down
of
to the
the
mouth,
top side of
all the way
that.
down to the mouth of Steel River.
Right up there, yeah, right there.
DOT property. Going all the way down to the bypass.
Well, they were told they couldn't access that. They weren't supposed to be accessing.
Well, maybe not right there, but in that parking right, it's set up for fishing.
Yeah, there's a dock there.
Years ago, there was a guy that lived down there and he actually had a kayak or canoe launch there when he lived down. That was before the bypass went through. So I know it's a not much of a drop to get to the river there.
All great ideas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you guys know where things kind of left off with Jeff Summers when he had the kayak business? Because I know when he had that, it was super successful and he made a lot of connections. He was able to really promote it outside of the area. He had a lot of people coming up from Chicago, Milwaukee, more for the natural nature ride versus the fun and wild ride on the places. And he had made a bunch of partnerships with the drop-off location, and he had all that contact information. I'm not sure if anyone still has connections with him. He lives in New London. He just lives outside of town, but he would be one if he'd be interested in stepping in and consulting. He's got a tremendous base of knowledge.
Might be somebody that we could, maybe we could get him to come down here to one of our meetings and talk to him. I know.
It was hard for him to manage with his young family because it was all weekends, all nights and weekends.
I know that property, there's an issue with that property right there, that stewardship right there where he was putting in. So there is an issue with what you could do with that property.
Yeah, but he hooked up with people out on Stewart Road and he had the different points
sure.
that Dave's talking about. And he knows like, this is a 2-hour trip, this is a 4-hour trip,
Yeah.
this, like he's got all that information.
Yeah. And we'll have to get him to one of the meetings, have him come here and he can share that information with us. John?
I mean, I love the video. I love hearing this. This is excellent stuff. When that video comes out in the spring, I think everyone here has touched on it. Lori just touched on it. Maybe we also have some homework to do before the video. You don't just launch a video and then all the people come and it's happily ever after. We want to have resource materials, maps available, those trip times, tidbits we can learn from April, those kind of resource materials that we can maybe put in together in-house, but have them not necessarily all over town, but your points where you're going to have the kayak starting to show up and you can say, here you go, here's this map, and putting together the materials, kind of following the pitch through. And it's awesome, unbelievable potential for the area.
So John, you ready for the resource materials then? Because I know the first place anybody out of town is coming is you.
Well, we hand out thousands of maps from Hortonville down to just below Goots Landing, and they're everywhere. We print about 12,000 a year, and we have about 500 left at the end of the year.
Might be able to talk to Hortonville too, because wasn't that just time goes so fast. How long was that they put in their kayak launch at at Miller Park there. That was, was it?
Either this spring or this summer.
Yeah, late, it was last fall or something last year.
Maybe with them having just recently done it, you could pick up some pros or cons or do this, don't do that type thing. You know, and kind of what they've learned from it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything negative since they did it, so I think that's on our agenda for yet tonight to talk about.
Oh, you want to go in the next segue then?
Might as well go into review of the options for the dock improvements.
So number 7, I was hoping to have more information. Luke is working on just getting a cost for actually replacing all the docks down there. I'll kind of bring up the map and just kind of so you guys can visualize it. Because we do have money, you know, built up that has been building up in the boat launch fund. So we are using a little bit now for the ticket machines, but Luke is working on a plan right now to replace all the older ones. I think this one and this one on the west side were newer ones, but you know, we were looking at replacing the rest of them, upgrading them. So he's working on that cost. We'll bring it to the committee and then the council if we want to utilize the boat launch funding for that, you know, specifically. But there's been talk about, you know, maybe utilizing the ramp closer to the bait shop here for that. And the other day, Luke and I were talking about, actually Bob and I were talking about in the office, you know, obviously during walleye season, this place is packed. So we don't want to really, you know, do much during that because people are in and out. But, you know, once they get past the walleye run and the white bass run, these 2 landings on the west side more than likely you can maintain the traffic there for the rest of the summer. You know, and Johnny, pipe in with your input because you did it all the time. But maybe we develop this one to use it in the spring for the walleye run, but then add, you know, the handicap accessible kayak launch on the side of that. I don't know what April would think about that. I don't know what Johnny would think about that, but, you know, maybe utilize this as a, you know, promote that as one of the accessible kayak points, you know, in our system. But then also maybe look at downtown and such with that. For other, the challenge with the downtown is we would have to do something with a accessible like that easy dock, this type of system, just because you have that whole river wall, you know, along the river. So you don't have that nice, smooth transitional, like a boat launch type system. So we would have to kind of consider what we would want to do to add something to some of these ramps or some of these docks to make it easier for kayak launching and kayak retrieval. So, but,
You guys were talking about on what'd be the east side of Johnny's Bait there, of adding a parking lot for overflow, correct?
over here at the old city garage site someday, maybe putting a dock over here to allow, especially during the walleye run. You guys have all seen it. There's been cars, you know, half a mile parked down the road. If there's a way we can utilize this a little bit better, put a ramp or a dock here. And then if there's plenty of people that come, you know, driver and partner. So one person could launch the boat. The second person could drive the truck over here with the trailer. The person in the boat could come over here, pick up this guy, and away they go. So that'd be easier parking than walking half mile down the road on X.
Why wouldn't we think about just putting in a kayak accessible ramp there of that's the only use of this? And it's out of the way of all them guys in an area of parking and it's accessible year round. They can utilize the walleye run and all that as well. And it's out of everybody's way too. I mean,
That's one of the sites that we had talked about doing something with. You know,
and you just listen to April. I mean, a lot of that stuff is pretty simple and easy to grade out. I mean, yeah, you gotta work with the DNR and whatnot, but there's minimal cost into putting a flat surface in that kayak easy dock.
Chad, can you go upriver just a little ways?
Upriver?
Yep. Right there, right there, that's the spot. I've seen a lot of kayaks launch or land right there. Then they'll drag the kayak either up or I know where they go with it. But that's the point where they get out.
Chad and I did a little bit of research in that area. When that was put in, we believe that was made for that, correct? there was like a hanger or something.
Well, we talked about those, you can see those, and Rob, is Rob still here? You didn't,
Yeah.
those weren't put in when you were here, were they?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, we got the resident expert.
Outlet for that storm drain, that's
Oh.
the primary. Yeah, it didn't necessarily have a theme or plan for that section, but it mostly facilitated the storm drain going on.
But these piers were for canoes to sit on, right? Is that what that was for?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, the thought was that you could launch off of that, but the site again just kind of facilitate the storm drain. You do what you want to do with it.
Yeah. The only problem is parking. There's no really
Right.
parking for people to launch.
No parking there at all. huh?
But that's all good homework. That's
Yeah, that's stuff for some future, we got all winter to look at some of these options.
Did we ever check to see if that money could be used for kayak? Boat launch fees?
I know it can be used for improvements on this site. Whether you can use the boat launch funds on a different site.
I don't think so. 'Cause that's all stored. You get into stewardship money, you can't monkey with it. That stewardship funding and stuff with DNR. And the only way that money can be used is for the boat launch. You can't use it.
Now, if we say
But
that
that property
this
is
ramp,
connected, isn't it? So you could just put another.
well, if there's a ramp here designed for people to come over here and launch, like that thing.
Then you could use it.
I don't know, Rob, what do you think? Is
I
that,
think you could.
I think you can get away with
Yeah,
that.
it's the waterways funds you're talking about.
Waterway funds, yeah. Then you could probably use it,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's gonna facilitate launch.
It's gonna, yep.
well, I was gonna say too. I mean, if that's something that spins off and you put in a kayak use only, canoe use only concept there, and you are setting up a fee. I mean, we did talk about that before, a user fee. That could also go to fund other areas. I mean, then we're not tied into this either.
Well, if you take a launch fee for that site, it's got to go straight to that site.
Oh, no kidding.
That's the boat launch fund. So
Got it.
similar to the boat launch, we have the fund. 100% of the fees have to go back to the maintenance of that.
That
boat launch.
area.
Yep.
So then to do it like another kayak launch site, you would, well, for that one, you could tie it into this one. Like you said, you could just make that part of the launch of this one. But if we wanted to put in another one somewhere else, how would you pay for that? If you can't use the kayak off of that one?
We have to fund it somehow, whether there's a grant that would accommodate that. Rob, I don't think recreational boating funds used for kayak launches yet, are they?
No, but if you have dual use, we're gonna do the same thing, but it's a boat launch facility, but a dual use pier, kayak, staging for a boat launch. I think that's what you're kind of talking about. If you tie
It's tied to,
together.
the transient boating, then you can get away with it, but, or there's stewardship, we've been successful in some stewardship funds, not to say we're gonna get it every time, but, you never know.
In reality, I don't think if we're talking kayak stuff, we're not talking tens of thousands of dollars.
No.
These things are at minimal cost, even at groundwork and everything else.
The biggest challenge is the river fluctuates so much.
Right.
So you got to have a docking system that can accommodate that. Not that you got a short ramp and when the river goes down 8 foot, it's there. So
It's like the dog park one. It looked like they were saying, it looks nice when water's high, but when
Exactly,
water
that's-
drops down, then what do you do then?
Yep.
So that's the other problem.
That's the challenge. We have to accommodate things, but
Yeah.
that's something that can be looked at.
Anybody, anything else on the dock improvements? Director's report?
Let's see. I think I got anniversaries. Quickly, anniversaries. September 21st, Mike Fredlin, one of our senior transit drivers. He's been with us for 11 years. I was floored when I saw that. And then Patrick Guyette, one of our park caretakers, 6 years on September 22nd. So otherwise, got your reports, working on the boat long tishing machines. Police Department HVAC project, I'm assuming that's going to be wrapped up in the next few weeks. They're getting to substantial completion mode. And it's going to be closing down park time, closing bathrooms and closing things down for the winter. So that's it.
So next month, agenda items, maybe this, we'll have something on the trails and the biking trails.
Yeah, I think there's continued conversation
Yeah.
on some of the stuff.
And then on the ticket machines, we can have some stuff on the ticket machines next time because they should be operating.
If we got them operating, because we got to, they're gonna be pouring the concrete in the next week. We gotta get them installed. We gotta hook them up to the telephone, the cellular lines. And then Judy's working on getting the credit card readers working. So I don't know if they're actually gonna have them in operation. I want to have them figured out this year so that by next spring, they're in operation, ready to go. But there's some things that have to be done to get them to work.
Now we can keep up our discussion on the kayak.
Yes.
And I think we should have that field trip on the agenda if
Yeah.
weather permits.
Yep.
For biking, yeah, sure. Anybody got anything else?
Are is the manual ticket thing at the park at the river, are we gonna leave that there? Where they put the envelope and stuff in? Are we gonna leave that one in?
I'll leave it there for the time being, just make sure we got all the bugs worked out of it. But if everything with the two, and that's why, one of the reasons why we bought two, in
Right.
case one goes down, you still got one operating, so.
I was past there the other day and I just saw the old one. And I just got to wondering if we were gonna leave that in or what we were gonna do.
I think eventually we'll kind of leave them in for the time being until we've used the new ones for a while and
Okay.
wait and see. You know, they're not gonna be hurting anything by
No.
sitting there, I don't think.
For a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
I know, I was gonna remind.
Thanks all.
Way to go, Bob. You got in a minute.